There has never been a heavier feeling in Atlanta's air. She said that a new fire had been started this time, just when we believed the never-ending cycle of what he had spoken was over. The Harris family's door is being licked by flames. Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris have long been seen as the model for the longevity of reality TV. They have endured migration, family strife, and jail time. However, Bambi claims that the blueprint is based on a move that nobody anticipated and is based on a foundation of secrets. The strong, self-reliant Bambi that we have come to know has chosen to speak up. This isn't about small-minded criticism on social media. It's a clear warning. It was more than just a gash when Bambi called Mendeecees a cheater while staring into the camera. It was a grenade. These women's conflict has been smoldering for years. However, Bambi has gone too far by drawing attention to Mendeecees' purported adultery. Is this an instance of people hurting other people? Or is Bambi at last serving as the informant Yandy didn't realize she needed? The whispers on Atlanta's streets are turning into yells. Yandy has always controlled her own story, the ultimate bosswoman who maintains a close-knit family. However, the picture of the ideal marriage is beginning to crumble as Bambi lays out her receipts. Two titans are colliding right now, and the consequences could be disastrous. The tea isn't just hot tits boiling over, so buckle up. And when this is all over, LHL's terrain will be permanently altered. Although rivalry and ambition have always been prevalent in Atlanta, the premiere of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta Season 13B has created an unparalleled level of hostility. The story of Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris, as the untouchable couple, has been the foundation of the franchise for many years. They have positioned themselves as the perfect illustration of a ride-or-die couple that has persevered through lengthy incarceration, blended family issues, and ongoing public attention. But when Bambi chose to violate the cast's unwritten agreement, that meticulously crafted image was destroyed in a single terrifying instant. There was no physical altercation or loud screaming match at a club to start the disagreement. Rather, it started with a planned private meeting that resembled a courtroom deposition rather than a scene from reality TV. Bambi came into the meeting with an attitude that could only be characterized as icy transparency. Yandy sat across from her, prepared to talk about the typical drama involving the supporting actors. Bambi went straight for the jugular, eschewing the polite conversation. The atmosphere in the room suddenly changed when Bambi labeled Mendeecees a cheater while looking Yandy in the eye. This was more than a lighthearted insult. It was an official warning. Bambi presented her charge as an essential intervention rather than an assault. The streets of Atlanta were making fun of her behind her back, and she said she could no longer watch Yandy maintain a facade of perfection. The guru of public relations and narrative control, Yandy Smith, lost her footing for the first time in seasons. Not only was the phrase itself shocking, but Bambi's boldness in saying it while the cameras were filming for more than 10 years was as well. Yandy's devotion has helped her create a multi-million-dollar brand. She has authored books, given workshops, and shared countless articles about being a helpful wife. This business model was directly targeted by Bambi's warning. Bambi was effectively calling Yandy's entire life a lie when she called Mendeecees a cheater. She contended that Yandy's model for other women is really a trap-a-loop of forgiving a man who knows his wife's reputation depends on his reformation but has no intention of changing. Bambi made a really clear argument. She implied that Mendeecees' actions had not really altered since he first came into the public eye. Either Yandy had become more adept at ignoring it, or he had simply become better at hiding it. It appears that a number of sightings and rumors that Bambi heard through her own social networks served as the impetus for this particular warning. She didn't merely allude to adultery, she detailed a pattern of behavior in which Mendeecees would conceal a lifestyle that didn't resemble a devoted married dud by using studio sessions and work trips. As the discussion went on, the warning's psychological impact took center stage. Bambi questioned the core of Yandy's identity. She made the point that you can only be a ride-or-die wife if the person you are writing for is equally dedicated. By confronting him, Bambi made Yandy face the horrifying prospect that her greatest weakness was actually her strength. The caution was a mirror. Bambi was discussing more than simply Mendeecees. She was referring to Yandy's decision to remain blind. The moniker of cheater isn't limited to women, she said. It's about the humiliation of being the last to know the truth and the violation of trust. The tension in this section of the script emphasizes Yandy's sense of loneliness at the time, even though she made an effort to defend her husband. The exact Spami's descriptions of the places, dates, and individuals involved began to cast a shadow of doubt that was difficult to dispel with PR spin, because it drives the rest of the ensemble to pick sides. This particular conflict serves as the season's trigger. This is no longer a secret. The record became public property as soon as Bambi branded it as a cheater. The ripples began to spread. Other cast members started to doubt how they interacted with Mendeecees on social media. The receipt hunters got to work. The most contentious issue is still Bambi's motivation. While some fans perceive her as a tactical genius, attempting to undermine the most powerful woman on the program, others see her as a whistleblower who has finally spoken the truth that everyone else was too afraid to bring up. Whatever her motivations, the outcome was a complete breakdown of the status quo. Yandy was in a rare condition of weakness at the end of the episode, and Mendeecees entered the frame as a guy who must now answer to a story he can no longer control rather than as the hero. The viewer has received the warning and is now permanently branded as a cheater. The narrative has shifted from a serene depiction of a powerful marriage to the verge of a complete breakdown at home. After Bambi leaves the scene, there is a deafening silence that leaves Yandy to decide whether to keep guarding the blueprint or whether to finally investigate the warnings. The warning quickly gave way to the repercussions. After Bambi used the word cheater, it spread like a virus throughout Atlanta's social circles and eventually reached every member of the LHHATL cast. Swear, we witnessed the ride-or-die facade genuinely start to collapse under the pressure of public scrutiny. The charge was half of the story, but the evidence, the receipts that turn a rumor into a nightmare, was another. Yandy Smith immediately reacted with defensive hostility after the altercation. Instead of doing nothing, she set out to disprove Bambi, but the more Yandy attempted to silence the story, the more the streets started to respond. We witness a change in the cast's allegiance in this section of the narrative. Friends, who had previously kept quiet out of deference to the Harris family's influence, began to make subtle allusions. Bambi didn't simply walk away with a label. She started providing details to support her assertions. It wasn't just one error. It was about a way of life. There are rumors that Mendeecees has been spotted in late-night lounges in Miami and Houston. His purported business visits started to gather popularity. The receipts were more than simply grainy pictures. They were flight logs, timestamps, and first-hand reports from persons who had nothing to gain from lying. The story had evolved beyond Bambi's accusations against Mendeecees. Yandy was no longer able to use a straightforward PR statement to explain the mounting mountain of coincidences. We witnessed a side of Mendeecees Harris that the cameras hardly ever show as the pressure increased. Mendeecees, who was often cool, collected, started to exhibit signs of severe agitation. His attempts to gaslight the issue are shown in the script as being motivated by Bambi's desire to ruin a happy home and her resentment over her own divorce from Scrappy. However, his defense seemed flimsy. Every time he attempted to seem to be the victim, something new would come to light. His reputation in the community and in business began to suffer as a result of the label of cheater. Part of the conflict in the house escalates to a boiling point. We witness the long pauses at the dinner table, the hushed arguments in the halls, and the peaceful times between Yandy and Mendeecees when the cameras aren't the main focus. In real time, their brand's foundation of trust was being undermined. Yandy, who has always been the strongest defender of her husband's reputation, was put in the difficult position of standing up for a man while also questioning whether she was being duped. It is impossible to discuss LHHATL drama without mentioning the fans. The digital fallout takes on a life of its own as Part 2 progresses. After searching through previous videos and social media posts, bloggers and T-channels discovered Easter eggs of Mendeecees' alleged adultery that had been concealed in plain sight. For years, the question of whether he is cheating was replaced by the question of how long Yandy has been known. Yandy was aware. Bambi was the quiet architect during this time. She no longer had to yell. The fuse was already lighted by her. As her warning turned into a thorough probe, she observed from the sidelines. Every time Yandy shared a joyful family photo to make up for the drama, the terms cheater and Bambi swamped the comment sections. The goal of this psychological warfare was to weaken Yandy's resolve, and it was succeeding. The realization that the Yandy and Mendeecees brand may be irreversibly tarnished is the biggest repercussion in this segment. They promoted the notion that love overcomes all inmates for years, yet love is powerless over disrespect. Bambi's caution made clear that the entire plot of The Restored Man was a marketing gimmick if the cheating was real. The tension finally erupts in a large-scale group event at the end of the section. In order to stay relevant, some cast members who were feeling the heat of the drama started to distance themselves or, worse, disclose more material to the blogs. Yandy finds herself standing in the center of a falling empire. The receipts, the texts, the sightings, and the indisputable patterns confront her. At this point, the ride-or-die queen finds herself in a difficult situation. Does she save herself or does she perish along with the ship? The question now concerns the aftermath rather than the cheating nits as we approach the script's conclusion. A terrible conclusion has been made possible by the validation of the warning, the display of the receipts, and the aftermath. The narrative now shifts toward the pivotal moment when the truth ultimately compels a change that nobody anticipated. As the story neared its unavoidable breaking point, Dot was disclosed in the preceding weeks as the dust started to settle from the explosive recedes. At this point, the shock subsides and the reality of a broken existence becomes apparent. Bambi's warning wasn't merely a dramatic TV scene. For the version of Yandy and Mendeecees that we have known for more than 10 years, it was the start of the end. The now what of a legacy in jeopardy takes precedence over the if and how of the cheating in this last section of the story. At last, the ride-or-die queen had had enough. The cameras caught a picture of Yandy Smith without her usual public relations gloss in the season's final episodes. There was no heated disagreement when the breaking point occurred. The realization that she could no longer defend the indefensible came to her quietly and devastatingly. Every corporate endeavor, every public appearance, and every family milestone they shared had been plagued by the stigma of being a cheater. There was more to the conflict in the home than just adultery. It turned into a story about their partnership being betrayed. Yandy struggled internally to strike a balance between being a boss lady with a brand to defend and being a woman who loves her husband. Men are now forced into a corner and have run out of justifications. Had to acknowledge that the effects of his actions were beyond Yandy's expertise. It was evident that their marriage had undergone an irreversible change in power dynamics. The woman who initiated it all, Bambi, is surprisingly unwavering. She did not back down or apologize for the disruption she produced. Despite the expectations of many, her warning, she insisted, was an act of liberty. Bambi represented the new Atlanta in the last group moments, when women are no longer prepared to cover for a man's secret life in order to preserve the status of a power couple, and devotion isn't blind. In the season finale, she played the observer, who had effectively changed the show's culture by confronting the franchise's most protected man. Nobody is above the truth. As Bambi demonstrated, there was no hug or reunion to ease the tension between her and Yandy. It concluded with a chilly mutual recognition that the streets had prevailed. The game had shifted, and the secrets had finally been made public. The Harris family is faced with a decision that will probably shape the next few years of their existence as a result of the consequences from Season 13B. This time, Mendeecees' path to salvation is far more difficult. The cheater story has alienated the core audience that once supported Yandy, replacing his brand as the redeemed family guy with a far more complex and less commercial image. This is in contrast to his previous legal issues, when the fans sympathized with him. Rebranding is the key to the future. Yandy 2 is just getting started. 0. A woman discovering that her worth is independent of her capacity to rescue a guy. As the season comes to a close, she shifts away from the couple-centric content that dominated her prior years and instead focuses mostly on her children and her own business empire. The plan has been irrevocably altered, regardless of whether they ultimately remain together or part ways. As this chapter of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta comes to a close, Bambi's comments continue to have an impact. This was not your typical reality TV season. It was a psychological investigation of the price of celebrity and the brittleness of public personas. They heard the warning. The receipts were totaled after the cheater label was affixed. Season 13B's storyline of Yandy Mendeecees and Bambi serves as a warning to the whole business. It serves as a reminder that the most lethal weapon in the entertainment industry isn't a physical one. It's the truth spoken by a person who no longer fears speaking it. The city of Atlanta will never be the same. One thing is certain as we anticipate the upcoming chapter: the unfiltered era. No one's secrets are safe anymore, since the truth has finally arrived. However, I'd like to hear from you now. Is it inappropriate for Bambi to show this to the cameras? Or was it appropriate for her to finally alert Yandy to the conditions on the streets? Do you believe that the Harris family's ride or die phase has officially ended? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. I'm reading everything. Remember to subscribe for more exclusive LHHATL breakdowns, and press the like button if you liked this in-depth analysis. In the next one, I'll see you.